Alrighty, well, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Rita. I am the Program and Technology Specialist here for the Wood County Committee on Aging. I have Hannah Smith here as my special guest. Hi, Hannah.
Hey.
So you're from the Wood County Solid Waste Management District. And today, I mean, she's been doing presentations for us for a long time now. But we do have a few of them saved on our YouTube channel. So make sure you look back in our library of videos to check out some of her prior presentations. Today, we're focusing on landfills and where does our waste go? And we're focused on Wood County, but I'm sure it could apply to other folks that are maybe watching elsewhere. But I'll let you take the floor. Thank you for being here, Hannah.
Thanks, Rita. Thanks, guys, for joining us. So, yes, we are going to talk trash today. It's maybe not the most glamorous subject, but landfill and landfill management is an important aspect of any type of civilized society. And a big part of our responsibility as a solid waste management district is to oversee and manage the Wood County landfill. And if you're not familiar, it's off of Route 6. You might see the windmills as you're driving by, and those are actually on landfill property. So it's not just a big pile of trash. It actually looks like, almost like a park or something with a big hill. And I always joke that in the wintertime, it'd be the best sledding hill in Wood County. Since we were so flat here, we can maybe get one good hill in. But I'm going to kind of give you an overview of landfill operations, what is a landfill, why we have them, and what we can do to limit the amount of materials going to the landfill. So let me share my screen. Can you guys see that okay? Okay, all right, so yeah, we often tell people, okay, you're done with that wrapper, go throw it away. Well, the landfill is our away. In waste, there really is no nature. In nature, there really is no waste. Waste is a man-made creation. And for right now, a landfill is our best tool for dealing with waste that can't be recycled or composted. And I want to discuss that in more detail too. So on my left is a picture of a landfill. You can see that it's a big operation. There's some heavy equipment, there's signage. And then on the right is a picture of an open dump. So a lot of third world countries, they don't have a landfill per se. The land literally just gets filled up with trash. People just start open dumping. And then we have issues with pollution and public health. So that was kind of the impetus for why we created sanitary landfills in the first place. So at the landfill and at Wood County landfill, we accept what's called MSW, which is municipal solid waste. So that's any type of trash from your business, your school, home, church, trash that's generated within the community. And we do not accept things like hazardous waste or industrial waste or any type of liquid waste. Those things all have to go to a specialized facility that have the equipment and the resources to deal with that kind of waste. And like I mentioned a little bit ago, the landfill is important, even though it's not, the prettiest thing in the world. It's important because otherwise we have these open dumps, and by having it contained and managed, we can make sure that we're protecting not only our health, but the planet's health, our waterways, our air, our soil, and the animals that live nearby. Which, when I first went out to the landfill, just a quick story, if I hadn't seen them actually dumping and known where I was, you almost would have thought that it was a nature preserve. I mean, we have deer on the property, there's a woodland surrounding it, farms surrounding it, lots of birds, including an eagle. So it actually is interesting how, man versus nature, and then we kind of survive together. So we have what we call a sanitary landfill. That means that it's safely contains the waste. So in 1976, the United States EPA created this RCRA Act, which basically mandated that it had to, all counties and municipalities had to eliminate their open dump sites and follow this very regimented and regulated process for accepting trash. And I have a little edible landfill demonstration I'm going to do here in just a second. So ours actually opened prior to the passing of this act. And with the landfill opening in Wood County, it eliminated 20 open dump sites that were scattered throughout the area. The landfill sits on 200 acres, and we have an active dumping area, which we call a cell, of 43 acres. So a cell is what is currently taking the MSW, the community trash, and managing it. And we have some exciting news at the landfill. We just finished wrapping up a capping project. So of the 43 active acres, you kind of go in a line as far as where you're putting the trash. And we are capping off the west side of the landfill. And I'll show you pictures of that. And we are working with the EPA to expand northward. So we'd actually be almost creating an entirely new landfill. And that's a very involved process. It takes a lot of money, it takes a lot of construction, it takes a lot of different agencies working together to make sure that it does protect our health and the planet's health. So as I'm sure you're aware, trash has some issues with it. So the first is going to be, of course, like the smell. You know, decomposition and rot generally doesn't create, you know, there's no Yankee Candle scent of landfill essence. So, you know, we want to control the smell to the best of our ability. We also want to make sure that we don't have toxic chemicals. So sometimes people will throw away things that should not go into a landfill. As I mentioned, we don't take hazardous waste. There's other facilities that specialize in that. So when these things come to the landfill and they don't get removed prior to going into the active cell, sometimes we get small landfill fires, or things, you know, like hairspray might react with another chemical agent and they get crushed together, and that creates problems at the landfill. A giant trash fire is not a fun way of spending your weekend. We also want to, as I mentioned before, protect our soil and our water health and our air health. So now I'm going to do a little demonstration, and this actually makes landfills seem tasty. So I'm going to do a project called the Edible Landfill, and this is something I do with a lot of students so they can kind of understand the different layers, and that it's not just like an open dump site, that it's a very structured operation. So this is going to be my active cell, and there's a lot of layers that go into preparing for the trash. So our next expansion project, we're going to spend probably a good 2 to 3 years just preparing that area to accept the solid waste. You can't just, you know, dig a pit in the earth and start dumping your trash into it. So this is my new landfill, and the first thing I'm going to put is a scoop of Oreos, and that's going to be my compacted clay. So this represents my compacted clay, and that's going to provide like kind of the base for the landfill. So clay is very dense. It doesn't allow a lot of water or anything to go in or out of it. So that's why it's a great natural material to start the landfill. And then next I have my fruit by the foot. So this is our HDPE, high density polyethylene liner. So this is a thin piece of plastic, but it's very strong. It's an impermeable barrier. So this is kind of what's going to seal the earth from the trash, and we're going to repeat the process to seal out the trash from the earth again. So that's going to be the next step. And then these little pull and peel Twizzlers, these are going to act as my leachate collection system. So these are going to go at the bottom of the landfill over the HDPE liner. And leachate refers to, it's like a fancy term for trash juice. Any type of liquid that comes in contact with trash, whether it be from like decomposition or from precipitation, it has to be treated. So these pipes are going to collect the leachate and transport it to our water treatment facility. And then next I have our filter layer. So this is a geotextile, and this might be like pea gravel or something that is porous, and it's going to help filter out to keep the solid up here and allow the wastewater to trickle down into the leachate collection system. So that's the next layer. And then I have another similar layer, but it's more of like a blanket. So that's my second graham cracker. And that just adds another layer of filtration to, again, separate the solids from the liquids. Then the Twizzler is going to represent that's going to represent my methane collection pipes. So what happens when things break down in a landfill is it's not just like throwing a banana out into your grass, where the banana is going to break down. It has sunlight, it has soil, it has air, and it has the opportunity for little microorganisms to start that decomposition process. In a landfill, we're essentially entombing our trash. So just a side note, there's really no decomposition going on at the landfill. They've done studies where they actually dig up old landfills that have been closed, and you can still read the front page of a newspaper 40 years after it had gone into the landfill. So that's how little decomposition is happening. But for the little amount that does happen, when it breaks down the food and the paper products, the organic materials, they create methane. And methane can be a very dangerous, very combustible gas. So that has to be piped out, because otherwise that gas is going to build up and create pressure. And then we end up with a trash explosion, which no one wants. So at the Wood County landfill, we've actually looked into collecting and harnessing and capturing this methane. So instead of piping it up and dispersing it into the air, we would collect it, and it could be used as an energy source. So right now, we don't generate enough methane to make that economically feasible, but that is something that we're looking into with the new expansion or in the future. So that's my pipe for the methane. And then I have my municipal solid waste. So my cereal is going to be my trash, and each day we get more and more trash. So our landfill is starting to fill up. And let's say that our landfill has reached its capacity, we can't go any higher. So now we're going to cap it off. First, I have my daily cover. So to keep out, like scavengers, a lot of birds, or to keep down the smell and make sure that things don't blow out into the neighbors' yards, we have a daily cover. So each day after the landfill closes, we put on our daily cover, which is going to be Manila wafers. So that just kind of locks in the trash, not permanently, but until we add more trash the next day. This landfill is at capacity. We can't take any more trash. So then the next step is kind of just reversing the earlier process. So now I have another 2 to 3 feet of compacted clay, which is my Oreos. All right, so we have a nice clay subgrade on there. And then I'm going to put another liner, another plastic liner. So the 2 liners kind of seal in everything and make sure that nothing leaks out and nothing gets into the finished landfill. And then after that, we add topsoil, which is going to be my pudding. So you can tell that the kids love this project because they get to eat this afterwards. So this is probably one of the favorite presentations that I give. So there is my topsoil. We have about 5 to 7 feet of that. And then last but not least, we are going to plant some green grass, my shredded green coconut. And now we have a beautiful hill of trash. We actually, at the Wood County landfill a couple weeks ago, we finished off with our plastic liner and our sand and soil. And in the spring, we're going to sod it and plant it with grass. So like I said earlier, that portion of the landfill, you really won't even be able to tell that it was a landfill unless you are familiar with the facility. So that's the edible landfill. And at our landfill, we can build up to 180 feet tall. So the part that we capped off, that had reached that height. So according to the Ohio EPA, we cannot add any more to that active cell. So it has to be closed, capped off, like the demonstration I just did. At the Wood County landfill, we can take up to 499 tons a day of municipal solid waste. We usually get about under half of that. We have haulers coming in, so if you live in the city limits or if you have a private trash service, like NAT, Republic, Waste Management, the guys that come and pick up your trash can, most likely that's where they're taking it, is to the landfill. We're also a public landfill, so if you are cleaning out your garage or doing raking your leaves and you want to take it to our yard waste facility, we accept public people to come in and use the landfill as well. And when I first found out how much tonnage that we take, it sounded like a lot of trash, which it is, but compared to cities like Cleveland, you know, we have a pretty small operation. There's landfills that are, you know, 20 times our size. So the picture here on this slide, this is a compactor. As you can see, it has some pretty gnarly wheels. So like the name states, it compacts the trash. So one of the employees at the landfill, for most of the day, he's going to be in the compactor and he's literally just compacting the trash. So as the haulers come up and dump into the active area, he's going back and forth over that trash, trying to smash it down so it takes up as little space as possible. And that's another reason that things don't really break down naturally there, is because there's just no airspace between the materials. Everything gets smashed together, which saves the life of the landfill, but it also creates methane and other issues. And then if you remember from the demonstration, I used 2 Nilla wafers. So that was our daily cover. And at the Wood County landfill, we have what's called a tarpomatic. So it's kind of this like fun, unique piece of equipment that rolls out this tarp. And then it's a material that's similar to paper mache around the edges. And that helps keep the tarp over the active dumping cell and prevent things from flying off. So as it says in the slide, we're essentially selling the airspace. So this tarpomatic, instead of having to put like a layer of dirt or a layer of glass, shredded glass, or tire shreds, this we can use each night after the cell has been filled up for the day, and then we can unroll it in the morning. So it saves us space and in the long run saves money. And this is what project currently happened at the landfill. So it's called capping. And this is the HDPE liner I was talking about. So it's these long sheets of plastic, and then they kind of heat seal them. You can kind of think of like a big blow dryer. So they heat seal the sheets together, and that creates a permanent seal. And then they go along the edges to make sure that nothing can get out and nothing can get in. So this is the part of the landfill presentation that I am really passionate about, and that's actually reducing the amount of material that goes to the landfill in the first place. So each year we collect information. We send out these surveys to residents, to townships, to commercial and industrial facilities, and we get data on how much waste is generated versus how much recycling is generated. And we have a lot of waste in Wood County. We actually, according to our last data, each person in the county creates 5.21 pounds per person per day. So with all of us combined, that's about 200 tons of trash per day. And, you know, in our society, we, especially with the pandemic, we've moved to a lot of single-use plastic packaging. There's a lot of material that is just designed to be trash, and it's a take, make, waste economy. So whatever material that your product is wrapped in, that goes immediately into the trash. So grocery shopping, it's almost impossible to not buy plastic wrappers or single-use plastic there to get your food products. I found this statistic that's a little startling. It says only 1% of things bought in the last 6 months are still being used today. The rest goes to the landfill. We actually create about 2 times more of the waste than we did 50 years ago. And a lot of that can be attributed to this packaging, which isn't designed to be anything but waste. So this is a snapshot of the total waste that was generated across the country. So the United States EPA gets this data from all of our local data. And as a nation, we created over 260 million tons of trash. And when we look at the pie chart and break it down, hopefully you can read this, there's some big chunks that kind of stick out. So the first big chunk we see is going to be the blue paper and paperboard, which makes up 25% of all the municipal solid waste that goes to the landfills each year. And that quarter of the pie, paper and paperboard, could either have been recycled or it could have been composted. So instead of getting a new life in the recycling, or instead of creating this really healthy soil amendment in the compost, it went to a landfill where it's going to be entombed for we don't really know how long. The next big chunk is this yellow plastics. And then we also have metals in gray, which is together about another 25%. And most metals and some plastic can also be recycled. And then over here, we combine these two pieces of the pie. The dark gray is going to be 15% of our waste was food waste, which is a huge percentage. And we have 13%, which is yard trimmings. And together, food waste and yard trimmings, both of these things could have been composted. At the Wood County landfill, we do not accept yard waste into the landfill. We encourage people in townships to bring it to our yard waste recycling facility. So we accept like small branches and sticks and leaves, and those things get broken down into mulch, which we then use for like Wood County parks, or it's available for purchase for residents. So in all, about 75% of the materials that came into the landfill could have been recycled or compost. There is quite a lot of recycling that goes on at the landfill. So we have a scrap metal bin where people can put like their metal appliances, their white goods, washers, dryers, stoves, refrigerators. Those things do not go into the landfill. Those things get recycled through a private company. We also recycle tires there. So we partner with Enviro Tire, and any tires that come into the landfill are taken back down from the top of the hill to our, we have a big semi-trailer that we store all the tires in until it's filled up. And those things get picked up and recycled. We also have a lead acid battery recycling facility. So these type of materials, we really don't want them, nor are they allowed legally to go into our landfill. And so by keeping them out of there, we can partner with other agencies that specialize in recycling these materials. So in order to reduce our 5.2 pounds of trash per day, there's a few R's that we can kind of keep in the back of our mind, especially when you're shopping for food or shopping for clothing or materials or other household items. The most important thing we can do is just to rethink. So, in the way that I'm shopping, are these items going to end up in a landfill in the next day? Are these things that are durable goods? Do I really need this? When it comes to things like plastic straws or plastic bags, most of the time we can refuse those things. So by not creating the waste in the first place, then we don't have to worry about managing it. We can also reduce our waste. So I know for me, I live on my own. So when it comes to food, I have to be really smart about, okay, yes, I can buy a 10 pack of chicken thighs, But am I realistically going to eat that much in 1 week? Is that stuff going to go into the landfill? So reducing the amount of materials that I consume, and then ultimately I don't have to worry about how am I going to dispose of this. The fourth R is reuse. So I think I saw Rita was using a reusable water bottle, and that's great. Those types of things reduce the amount, especially plastic, that we consume. And then the last on the list is recycle. So things like plastic water bottles or plastic bags, we can actually recycle those things, but unfortunately it is the last defense that we have. And then once a landfill's closed, it's kind of wild what they've turned into. So we have to manage landfills it's called post-closure care. So we have to, even though they might close down and they no longer are actively accepting trash, we have to make sure that they're still being monitored on a daily basis for groundwater contamination, air pollution, soil pollution, to make sure that they're still containing all that waste like they're designed to. So here's a picture. It's called Mount Trashmore. It's in Virginia, and it's actually the largest park in that state. So it's like a family park. You know, you can bring your kids there, have a picnic. This one is probably my favorite one. So in New York, it's called Fresh Kills Park, and it used to be the largest landfill in the United States. It's 3 times larger than Central Park, so it is vast. And if you look at this picture, I mean, never would you have guessed that this is a inactive landfill site. They've done huge projects with wildlife and environmental restoration there. So there's kayaking trails, swimming, they have cultural heritage, monuments, it's a wildlife refuge, swimming, fishing, entertainment, all those things, horseback riding trail, and that is a actual landfill. And then this is a picture in New Jersey. It's the Liberty National Golf Course. So I don't know, I'm not a good enough golfer to handle the hills that probably come along with a landfill, but it is a challenging course for people that are avid golfers. So life after landfill, you know, essentially landfills are our best option for managing trash right now. We can all do our part to kind of minimize the amount of waste that we send to them on a daily or weekly or yearly basis. But until we have better infrastructure for managing our waste, they have to go somewhere, and they are most likely going to a landfill unless they can be recycled or composted. And landfills aren't just open trash dumps. They're actually very scientific, methodical facilities that manage our municipal waste. And once they are maximized, we can turn them into something that continues to benefit the community, whether it's a park or a golf course or a horseback riding trail. So that is the end of my landfill presentation. If anyone has any questions, I would be happy to answer them.
Wow, that is awesome information, Hannah. And I know that I was very enlightened. I didn't really know anything going into this, but it sure makes me appreciate everything, all the thoughts and the processes that do go into it. And if you didn't make it to our composting presentation we did last month, please check out the YouTube channel for that, because I feel like, you know, a few things in the presentation absolutely relate to that and how much waste we could, you know, divert to composting. So I'm going to open up the floor. I will prompt everybody to unmute themselves. Let's see here. Okay. And I open the floor up for any questions. Now, I did notice that Carol in the chat asked, how many years will our Wood County landfill be active?
So that's a great question, Carol. According to our last year's data, we have a little over 5 years left on the current Wood County landfill. We've had this expansion project kind of in the works for a few years now, but because it is so involved and there's so many organizations that have to be, you know, working alongside us at the landfill, like we have the Ohio EPA, we have private environmental contractors. So it's going to be a few years before that is actually underway and completed and can be accepting municipal solid waste. So for right now, we're not worried about the timeline so much, but we have about little over 5 years left at our current facility. So not a lot of time.
Now, so where does funding come from to support, the landfills in each county?
So interestingly, as much as I try to discourage people from throwing away trash, that is where our funding comes from. So it doesn't come from taxes. It doesn't come from like commissioners. Our funding for the landfill comes from tonnage fees. So we get, whenever people bring trash or whenever we have haulers that bring, their routes to us, they have to pay to throw away that trash. So those fees help us to like fund things like the expansion project, to do the daily management and maintenance with our leachate and other programs, fund employees that have to manage the solid waste. And so essentially we're paying for our trash. It's not a free service.
Very interesting. Now, did you see Carol's follow-up question? What's the average cost to manage the landfill yearly?
So I think our budget runs around $600,000, and that includes we set aside a lot of savings for the post-closure care. So once we're no longer actively taking in trash and making money from the trash, we still have to use a lot of expenses to monitor that site. So some of it goes, I'd say, we have a chunk that goes to paying like salaries. We have a chunk that goes to our environmental protection agency fees and filing, and then the post-closure care as well.
Great to know. Anybody else? Oh, did you see Carol's?
Carol's, yep. That's another great question. So, who wants to live next to a landfill? Even though, they can turn into a park, it's definitely not an ideal place to like set up a school or a neighborhood. Interestingly, I did have someone say they live on Route 6 and they live across from the landfill and next to a horse farm. And they say that the horse farm smells way worse than the landfill does. So we have about the property covers about 200 acres. So we have plenty of space on that site. So that is our expansion's just going to basically connect the old landfill to the new landfill. They're not going to build a new site, but that is a huge problem. So, cities like New York, New Jersey, these East Coast densely populated cities that don't have, open farmland for sale. We actually get a lot of, Northwest Ohio gets a lot of like New York City and Boston's waste. So all of their trash goes onto a train and it comes through Fostoria and goes to Sunny something farms, landfill, because they just don't have the capacity to manage their own waste in their own state. It's cheaper for them to ship it to Ohio than it is to handle it there.
Wow.
That is very interesting. And you mentioned earlier in the presentation too, notably that other countries that don't have developed systems in place are dealing with pollution issues and methane and smells. And, is there, do you know by any chance, like, are we playing a part in helping other underdeveloped countries with this issue to give them our methods? And I don't know, like, do you know if anything is in place to help with that?
Yeah, so especially in the last couple of years, there's been like a huge push with marine debris or ocean trash. It's become a global problem. And so a lot of they traced it back. So like, where's this trash actually coming from? Because once it gets out to the ocean, the currents kind of move it where they will. But a lot of the trash, the majority of it, comes from these underdeveloped nations who don't have a trash route, landfills. So literally the rivers become their landfill. So they take all the trash, and especially things like plastic are lightweight, so they kind of float to the surface. They don't break down. So that's kind of like one side of stopping the plastic waste in the ocean, is helping these countries to fund a waste collection system like we have in the United States. So even though landfill is not ideal, it's obviously much better than just like dumping it into a river, which is how a lot of the world handles their waste.
That is very interesting. Now, did you see Carol sent another follow-up question? What percentage is out-of-state trash? Do you happen to know?
I don't know off the top of my head. So I know that we don't get at our landfill, we don't get a whole lot of out of state. We mostly get local waste because we are a smaller facility. But other, like I mentioned, Fostoria, I know that they receive a lot of out of state waste. So I could look into that because that's a great question.
All right, anybody else?
Very informative.
Well, I agree. I thank you very much, Hannah, as always, for giving us your time and your knowledge, and we're just happy to share it with as many people as possible. So let people know that they can check out this presentation on our YouTube channel if you think someone might find this interesting, and again, a push to eliminate or at least reduce our waste that we contribute to the landfills. But Hannah, thank you so much. Thank you for what you do, and I hope everybody has a great day ahead.
Thanks, Rita. Thank you, guys, and don't be trashy.
Yes.
That's my favorite tagline.
Thanks a lot, everybody. Have a good one.
Bye.